Welcome to Gardening with William DeMille. This is our Thursday night Q&A, where I hope you have the very best garden of your entire life. This is where we discuss gardening, farming, livestock, the Georgic tradition, soil health, all aspects of education. The purpose of this is to give your body the most health from the ground up. We had a fantastic webinar earlier today. Andrea Malmberg was on with a group of people. She is one of the pioneers in holistic management and regenerative agriculture. She has a ranch with her husband, Tony, in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. At least I think it's the Willamette Valley. I might be wrong, but it's in Oregon, and they are fantastic people. He is the author of Green Grass in the Spring. If you have not read that book, you need to expand your reading list. Today is September 14th. My book is ready for order on Amazon, and tonight is week 67. So with that introduction, I want to share with you a couple of details that I learned today on the webinar with Andrea. When the webinar got all over, they stopped the recording. They repurpose it as a webinar, or they do a webinar and a podcast. And after it was all over, we had a private conversation. There were about 4 people left on. The rest of the group left. And I asked her a question because she said something interesting about endangered species. I was not prepared for her answer, but I absolutely loved it. She said, well, first of all, during her presentation, she was saying we were looking for a ranch to buy that had an issue or a problem with endangered species because we wanted to fix that problem. And that was intriguing to me. That was not what her webinar was about. It was about the scientific tool of ecological monitoring. So it was high level stuff. And so when we got all done, I just asked her, I said, why were you looking for a ranch with an endangered species issue that you could deal with? That intrigues me. Talk more about that. And then I shut up so I could hear her answer. And it was super fun. What she said was just the most brilliant thing. She thought for a moment, and then she said, well, livestock is the key to healing the earth, but the enemy of policymakers. And I thought, what a brilliant way of saying it. I've never heard it said that way. And that got my attention and excited me. And then she went on and she said, if I could buy a ranch that had a real problem with an endangered species, I can bring back the endangered species. I can fix that environmental problem with my livestock as the tool to do that. And that helps everyone, including the policymakers. And I was thinking, that is the most glorious thing I've ever heard. She is not a rancher who hates the policymakers. I would say 90% or more of ranchers are in direct opposition to policymakers all the time. The policymakers are against livestock, therefore they're against ranching. And that means they're against ranchers. And here she is, instead of being mean and angry and frustrated about that, and trying to fight against the policymakers, she simply says, well, just give me a place where I can fix the problem and I'll fix it. And so they bought they moved from Wyoming, where they have been doing holistic management for decades. And then they went to, where was it? Well, Oregon, somewhere in Oregon. And she found a place where they had a serious problem with the endangered species, and it was salmon. The salmon run quit going up the river. They couldn't spawn. There were problems, and the river went through their land. And so they managed the land properly, and now the salmon in their river is off of the endangered species list. By doing exactly what we preach about here every Thursday night. Every time I open my mouth, this is what we're talking about. So this is such a beautiful success story, such a great testimony from somebody who is quietly out there doing it. And, there's not a lot of information about these people. It's just such a beautiful thing. So, it's been 2 hours since she told me that. And I just had to pass it on to everybody who's here tonight and people who see this recording. So it's fantastic and beautiful and wonderful, and I'm so excited about it. So that's the main thing I wanted to share tonight. Let me just show you my list here that I try to show every week. These are the 9 ways I help people to grow food, and I say this every week because I want everybody to know it. YouTube, our weekly Q&A, or my Patreon channel. I can do soil tests for you in my laboratory. I've got my newsletter. I can do consulting. My book is done. Get my book. If you don't have my book, get it. If you have it, read it. My 3-day boot camp, those things are available throughout the year. Our next one's probably in January. And my 17-week boot camp farmer training. So that's how I help people. Here's a picture of my students this year. This is the first week they got here. So I have 4 students this year. My daughter is there, standing next to me in the sweatshirt, the hoodie sweatshirt there. That's my daughter, Esther Marilla Joy. And then from left to right, we have Kirsten, Will, Esther, and then me, and then Abigail and Becca. And graduation is this week. So that's pretty exciting. So excited about it. It's on Saturday. It's 2 days from now. So it's fun. They have invited friends and family. We are expecting between 60 and 80 people. We don't even know who's coming. We told them RSVP, but we don't even know because that's the way humans are. And so that was not a derogatory thing. That's just the reality. Sometimes we should keep realities to ourselves. But anyway, we're so excited about this whole thing. We've been getting ready for graduation for a long time. I think it was 5 weeks into our class. Our class is 17 weeks long. So 5 weeks into it, we identified a need in society. And so each student made a list of their gifts, their interests, their talents, their personality, their perspective on life. What is the thing that you love? What is the thing that you enjoy? What is the thing you're good at? What is the thing you want to become better at? And we talk about those things as an individual, not as a collective class, not as a group that belongs to society, but you as an individual. And then I mentor them through that process of finding their genius and all of these attributes that they have, and then using those personal gifts and talents that they have, how can you impact a problem in society? And then they create a project, and they will be reporting on that. Each of them will be giving a speech this Saturday about something that they want to do. Some of my students, including this group here and in the past, some of them have started a service project. Some of them have decided to incredibly increase their education in the future. And so it was more of a personal project. Some of them are starting a business to impact hundreds of people. Some of them are starting a business to impact maybe a dozen people. Some of them are doing a community project. So there's just all these different things. But we are doing things that actually will have impact and make life better for someone else. And that is what we're focusing on, which is super awesome and exciting. And so we're going to hear from them on Saturday. We will be recording this. And so this will go out on my Patreon channel, and it will go out on the YouTube channel. I want to make this available for everybody. So this will be coming next week. It could be as late as Wednesday before we get it uploaded and out there, but this will be happening on Saturday, 2 days from now. So this is kind of a highlight for me. I've been wanting to do this all my life. I wanted to start a school before I got married, and I've been married for 30-something years. So I don't even know how long I've been married. Husbands should know that. My wife's probably pulling her hair out right now. She's probably listening in the other room. Oh, I can hear her laughing. Oh, dear. Anyway, the things we disclose when we are honest. So we had a good year this year. We talked about land management, and here's this picture here that shows land management and how we can you know, if you look here where my cursor is, here, this picture was taken. I got this picture today. I took a screenshot off of Andrea Malmberg's webinar that she did just hours ago. This is their ranch, and there's a bridge right here. So she went on the bridge, she took a picture of her ranch, and then she turned around, and the bridge, there must be a road there, and that's the property line. And so the other side is the neighbors, and oh, excuse me, I pushed the wrong button. And so this other picture here is the neighbors. And it was interesting in here. She's such a valuable, beautiful person. She said, I hate showing pictures like this because I don't want to say anything negative about my neighbors. And I have no idea what their stocking rate is, how many cattle they have on their land. But you can see the erosion along the banks. You can see mostly sagebrush. You can see not a lot of abundant grass on the neighbors. Well, on this, you see very abundant grass. You see the grass coming all the way down to the bank in most of the places. And you see small amounts of sagebrush, mostly grass. And you can see these meadows way in the background, very green, going back there. And while showing this picture, she said, after we got it to this point, and to get it to this point both, we were able to double our stocking rate. So if you want to turn a desertifying, degrading land like this one on the right into the most productive, you need twice the number of cattle to do it. And this is the absolute opposite of human intuition because we are ecologically illiterate. And so in our class, we focus on a lot of things, but the one great big focus of everything we focus on is ecological literacy, so that we can get the water cycle working, the mineral cycle working, the community dynamics working, all of the cycles. If it's an earth cycle, we get it working. Okay, water cycle, mineral cycle, the energy flow cycle, which is the sunlight. We're maximizing sunlight to grow more plants so that we can have more food to feed hungry people. You know, it is a tragedy to think of the, you know, people going to bed hungry. And it is shocking to think that 1 out of 5 children in the United States goes to bed hungry. I don't know if that's true, but it certainly is published. I mean, how could 1 in 5 children in the United States go hungry? Because there is a lot of poverty. There are a lot of socioeconomic problems. There are a lot of inner city food deserts. There are a lot of parents who probably were not prepared to have kids who had kids. And so there's all these social problems. There's not a lack of food. There is a lack of people who need the food getting the food. And so there's so many opportunities to bless the lives of people in this world. And that's why I started doing what I do. Because I could just live a hermit and I would enjoy that lifestyle here on the ranch, and I would do my thing and I would have the best food in the world and I would help my family, and not a lot of other people would get helped, but I have chosen to help other people because I believe that is extremely important. Anyway, I'm going to take a breath for a minute. Here's another picture of my students. We took this week. So I'm going to go back one slide if I know how. When they came here, when these students came here, so this was in the springtime when they got here 4 months ago. When they came here, they could not tell me what the 8 important organism groups that make a functioning soil are. And now they can say it like clockwork. It is instilled in their brains. They could not tell me how to take a portion of the worst desert in the world and how do we make that a food-producing mecca. They did not know. Now they know. And I could go on for 20 minutes telling you examples like that. So here they were, beautiful, awesome young people with smiles on their faces, excited to be alive, excited for their futures. And here they are 4 months later, the same people with a fantastic start on ecological literacy. They know so many things now that they didn't know then. And we did it all because we were outside doing things. We were looking at the water. We were looking at the grass. We were looking at the seeds. We planted cover crops. We planted food. For the last 3 weeks, these 4 guys have been eating from their gardens that they grew this summer. And this was not an easy growing season. I will be completely honest. I figured Costco would be feeding these guys the last 3 weeks because we had such a rough spring. In the month of May and June, we had 8 days of sunlight. But these guys have been eating the majority of their food, like 99% of it, from their gardens. It's been fantastic. They had a cool mentor, but that's not the point. But it was funny to say. The earth is what taught them. The classroom was outside in Mother Nature. The earth is the greatest teacher. Okay, I am done preaching tonight. I just wanted to share this with you. And I wanted to say some fun things about my students. I'm super excited about graduation. We've been getting the shop already. We mopped the floor. We hung up a curtain to make it look nice. We set up tables and chairs. We set up a backdrop where we're going to give our speeches. Tomorrow, we're going to take a big screen TV on there and hook it to my computer so we can have PowerPoints. We picked a bunch of pumpkins this evening, like 30 or 40 pumpkins. I don't even know. But we took them over there and we stuck them in there. We're going to make beautiful arrangements of things that they've been growing. It's going to be fun. And then we're going to have 50, 60, 70 people show up, friends and family of these guys to honor them. It's going to be cool. We're going to get these guys graduated and move them out into society with ecological literacy to have real impact, to fix the ecological problems that exist, and to bless the lives of our fellow human brothers and sisters around the world. Okay, let's open this up for questions. I'm going to stop my screen share right now. And here we are. What are your garden questions? What can I do to help you in your garden? Go ahead and unmute and let's have a conversation.
I have a quick question. I'm working right now on growing a whole bunch of apples from seed because I want genetic diversity, not necessarily exact results. And I'm wondering about when is the appropriate time to put them outside.
Okay, did you scarify them and stratify them?
They are in the stratification process. They were scarified.
So do you have them in the fridge right now?
Yes.
Or a freezer? Are they in the fridge or the freezer?
They're in the fridge at around 50 degrees because that's what the internet said was good.
How many sources did you read from on the internet about that?
3, but they might have all been, I don't know, for all I know, all of them were referencing the same thing.
Did you go to some of the horticulture, what are they called? Like the horticulture departments of 5 or 6 different universities. And when you start finding articles that agree on how to do that with apples, that's your best bet.
Awesome. Yeah, I can do that.
So that would be a good resource. The horticulture department, because they're the guys who deal with fruit trees. And not all colleges are going to have a good horticulture department. If they have a horticulture department, it'll be pretty good because they're, all the colleges out there that have pretty good programs. But I would just go to 7 or 8 of them and find them. I don't really know of a good pomology department. Probably Florida. Florida State used to be one of the top ones in the country for pomology. Pomology just means fruit science. Yeah. But so there you go.
Awesome. And so are you kind of implying that that I should freeze them? Is that kind of what your experience has been?
No, not necessarily, but in Mother Nature they freeze in the winter. But if they're telling you an optimum temperature range, then if you can keep it at that temperature range, that's great. And then do it for the length of time that they say. But the universities, now they've done all kinds of reductionist science on this. They know how to grow an apple seed. That's why I'm referring you there. But if without going to the internet, stick them in the fridge all winter, and then in maybe March, get them in a bunch of pots and stick them outside and see
And
if they.
so should I grow them outside?
Yeah, I'd start them outside. Do not start an apple tree inside or in a
Okay.
greenhouse. Don't do that. Just start them outside.
You seem to have a strong feeling on that. Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's just if you start them in a climate where they're not used to, and then you move them out of that climate, like a greenhouse or in your house under a grow light or whatever. As soon as you put them in a new environment, it's going to shock them, and you're it's like you're starting over. They're gonna stop growing, and they have to go through a whole nother winter before they take off and grow again. So it takes some time. So just start them in the environment where they're going to be growing. So go ahead and use the refrigerator or a freezer to stratify them, and then get them in a pot outside in the late winter, early spring. And even if that soil freezes a few times, it's fine. It'll help wake them up, and then they wake up and they'll start growing. So that's why.
Awesome.
Okay, fun. Okay, Ron.
Oh,
Here's Holly. You got a question? Oh, sorry.
somebody else on there? Go ahead. Okay,
Ron, go ahead. You're good.
so we were able to go out and start our little garden area here in Idaho. And we found we've been having a hard time getting wood chips. We can't seem to find anybody that we can get them from or anything. And there's no trees on our lot at all. So we can't even rent a chipper and chip trees. So anyway, we found a landscape company that had various sizes of bark, and we thought, well, it's something wood. I don't know. And then we found some straw. People were selling bales of straw. So we got a bunch of that. And our neighbor had some steer manure that he was willing to let us have as much as we want of. And he said it's over a year old and it didn't smell like anything. So I think it's probably fine from what you said.
Nice. Yeah, that's good.
So we put all that in a pot. Well, actually, the first thing we did, we put the 3 thicknesses of cardboard out and we watered that until we hoped to get it as watered as we could. And then we put the hay down, or not hay, straw down. And then we put the bark, and then we put the steer manure. Steer manure wasn't very much, but it was just a little bit on top. But anyway, then we watered everything. So we're hoping to put our seeds in it tomorrow. Now that we have it moistened all the way through. So do
Good.
you have any other suggestions for us, or should we just throw out all the seeds that you suggested and see what it'll do in this month before frost to get
Yeah.
a few hits in the
Plant a
ground?
jungle. It's awesome. Yeah, if you can get 30 to 40 days of growth in the fall before a hard frost kills it out, you've done well. So if you
Okay.
have some, I mean, you've helped the soil for sure. So if a lot of the seeds that I've already recommended to you, they're going to handle 5 or 6 of the early lighter frosts.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you're going to get 40 days. Winter's not going to happen in 40 days, I don't think. I mean, you never know, but I don't think it's going to be 4 inches of solid ice in 40 days from now. I mean, I would hope not, but that would be very uncommon. So yeah, if you can get it planted this week, fantastic.
Yeah. So we're excited to do that. The other thing was that when we were trying to water it to get it all wet, all the way through, we have ponds of water around the garden now.
Okay.
Starting to work their way into the ground. We think maybe by tomorrow morning they'll be soaked in. But should we be putting like more of the straw around the outside to try to help hold that water where it is, or not really where it is, like a pond, but to keep it from, I don't know, being a pond?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's a good idea. Yeah, you can really not have too much of that detritus sphere on there. as long as it's not over like 2 or 3 feet thick, you know. So, and
Mhm.
again, you don't have that much. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's, you could add a little bit more if you want it to be able to soak up. What that's telling you where you're getting puddles is that you don't have very good soil infiltration. So you have compacted soil and it's not infiltrating very well. So by
Right.
getting this detritosphere on there, that's going to be an excellent food source for the microbes that will fix that lack of infiltration. So this is good.
Well, good deal. We'll keep spreading it around.
All right, anything else?
Did you have anything?
No, we just have to find some fruit trees to put in the ground.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Good luck with your local nurseries. I know we talked about that last time.
We need to go
Yeah.
visit them again and see if we get a, maybe a decent price. I don't know. They're not cheap.
Yeah, they're not cheap. It's true.
If they
You do
guarantee them, that's our best bet. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll see.
Good. Yeah. Good luck, guys. That's great. That's good.
All right.
Okay. Abigail, go ahead.
Can you explain what scarifying and stratifying is? If those were the right words.
Yeah. So when you have hard seeds that grow on trees, like it would be like nuts or seeds inside fruits. Most fruit trees have a very hard pit, like an apple. An apple seed has a hard. There's a scientific name. I can't think of it. I haven't thought of this forever. But it's the shell that's around it, and it's very hard. And it takes 4 or 5 years for fungus to eat that away. And then once it eats it away, then the water can get in. And when a tree seed fills up with water, it's called imbibing. So it imbibes, which is some funny word. Should put that in a poem. But anyway, it means that it will get soft. You know, remember in class, one time we soaked bean seeds so that we could take them apart the next day and dissect them and look at the cotyledons and the true leaves and the radicle and all that. Well, once the little seed is soft inside, it has filled with water like a sponge soaks up water. And that is what we call imbibing. So to get a tree seed to imbibe, we have to sand down that hard shell just enough that the water can penetrate it. In Mother Nature, fungus does that, beneficial fungus. But if we want a tree seed to sprout right now, like in the springtime, then we would scarify it, which means we cover it with scars. So sometimes people will put it in a little, like what do they call those? When you reload bullets, you put the brass in a little vibrator that moves around. It's almost like a rock tumbler would do the same
A
type.
bowl sander. A bowl sander.
Yeah, thank you. Like a bowl sander. And then you put a medium in there that is sharp, like sharp sand, or with brass. If you're going to burnish brass, like bullet casings or jewelry, you would use something like corn cobs that are ground up. And so those things, like a dried corn cob, so that would scarify it. So if you do it too long, it would, like a sandpaper on a piece of wood. If you keep going forever, you will grind it down completely to sawdust and you won't have a board anymore. But if you only do it for 2 or 3 minutes, you have a nice smooth piece of a board. So scarifying is sanding down the outside layer of a seed so that water can penetrate it and imbibe the seed so that it will wake up and grow. So that's what imbibe. I mean, that's not what you asked. That's what scarify means. Now, stratify means that you give it a cold treatment for a certain period of time. And different species require a different time of cold stratification so that they will so they'll grow, so they'll wake up. In essence, we are mimicking nature, saying you've been through a winter.
Just speeding it up.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So a lot of tree species, you have to both scarify and stratify. And I think apple seeds, you need to do both.
And this is true of a lot of grasses too, right?
Yes, that is true. A lot of grass is that way. Not the real common grasses. There are those would be what, more of the native grasses around the country.
Yeah, I was thinking of Indian rice grass.
Yeah, that's one. That's a good example. Yeah. Okay,
Cool.
there you go. All right. Any more questions tonight?
We're good.
All right. Ron and Holly are good. Ezekiel, are you good?
Well, does just taking the outer shell off of things with pits count as their stratification or scarification?
Are you saying,
do you
excuse me, I talked over you, but are you saying if you crack an apricot and then you have the nut on the inside, or
Do
you
I need
ask,
to scarify it?
I don't know. I think a lot of those species, if you take the outside off, they will actually not sprout. It kills them.
Ooh.
Oh,
So the way that you scarify it matters. But here again, I'm not an expert on trees. These are just random things I've picked up over the years. I'm trying to be helpful, but you need to go to your horticulture departments and read the research. That's where, and then there's thousands of scientific papers out there that nobody ever reads because they don't know how to find them. But they're from the professors of the horticulture department. That's where you're going to find this. Specifically a pomology department. If you can find, because most colleges have a horticulture department if they have 4-year degrees, but only a few schools have a pomology department. And those are the schools you want because they will have the expert information for you for sure. Okay, Abigail, you got anything for me?
Today in the webinar, Andrea talked about how land needs oxygen, or oxygen more than water, just like
Yeah,
humans.
yeah.
And so it can't survive
Wordle.
very long without oxygen. Anyways, in your book, and one of your examples of the problem can be the solution. You talk about watering your yard creates a drought by using too much water, and the solution is growing climate appropriate plants, reducing water consumption, and stop acidification. So can you speak to the idea of water and oxygen and the balance, and then how to not know when you're watering too much, and that problem that you brought up?
Yeah, it's the how to water is probably the number one question I get over the years from people. How do I know how to water my garden? And it is the hardest thing to teach people. You have to overwater some stuff and kill it. You have to underwater some stuff and kill it. And then you have to learn a fine balance in your own soils to kind of understand that. You have to be out there every 15, or not every 15 minutes, excuse me. You have to be out there for 15 minutes every day, watching and observing and becoming ecologically literate about your plants, your ecosystem, your yard, your farm, your ranch, the land that you manage. You have to just you have to be a partner with it. Land isn't something we live on. Land is a partner that we are married to. And it's a relationship that we have to, we have to be nice. Sometimes young people get married and they're mean to each other. Their marriage doesn't last very long. And that's how it is with the land. And so that's a really hard thing for people to hear. about watering. Like, just tell me how much water to give it. Well, I don't know how much water to give it. How much sand is in your soil? How much clay is in your soil? If you pour a cup of water on your garden, do you still see a half a cup of water after an hour? Is it in a puddle? Or when you pour it on, is it gone? Does it just go straight in and it's gone? I can't tell you how much water to put on because I haven't seen your soil. So it's a relationship with your own soil, your dirt, your patch of posies, you know.
Yeah.
So
Something that I have, that principle I'm trying to learn, I've noticed that when you water in your dirt and your soil, well, when you're watering soil, it oftentimes will go down if you have good water infiltration. When it does that mean it's also that means it also has a lot of oxygen in it, right? Or it
Yeah.
has the capacity to have a lot of oxygen. So it goes hand in hand.
yes, if your water will not penetrate quickly, you do not get oxygen in. It's just like a syringe. Think of a syringe and you're drawing in fluid into a syringe. Well, if you remove the needle from the container of fluid and then you keep drawing on that syringe and pulling it, it's going to pull air in. And so gravity is the syringe that pulls the water. And so water is pulled down into the soil. And as soon as the water, when it stops raining or you stop irrigating, gravity keeps pulling the water. And where's the water going? It's going through all of the pores. It's going through the earthworm holes. It's going through the cracks in the ground. And so as soon as it stops raining, the water keeps going, and the weight of the water will pull in a new flush of fresh oxygen. Oxygen is our number one most important nutrient in the soil. Yeah, and it was fascinating. She had pictures on her thing today, Andrea did, of how many pounds of beef they were producing on their land. And when they stopped irrigating and just relied on rainfall, their capacity to grow more beef increased. It was a lot. I forgot the numbers, but it was a lot. And all farmers think, oh, we need to irrigate. And the irrigation is the thing that killed the salmon. And that's why the salmon were endangered. They stopped irrigating. That cleaned up the water because now they weren't polluting the river with runoff sediment from the ground. And they were growing 3, 4, 5 times as much foliage for their cattle.
What?
So that's pretty great.
Oh,
It is. It's amazing.
well, I thought it was-
Thank you.
You
Got a
bet.
question.
Yeah, go ahead, Ron.
Unless I was not muted. Oh, here we go. So we had a question. We were talking to some of these furniture companies in town that work with hardwoods, and we talked about getting some maybe some chips. Mostly they have sawdust though, but we were told that what, Holly?
Yeah, wood chips from them.
Wood chips they would be high in tannins. So is that something that works out over a reasonable amount of time, or what do you do with chips that are from a hardwood? Is that what he was
Yeah,
saying?
he wouldn't.
Yeah. So you would want to, things like walnut and oaks and those hardwoods that do have the high tannins. They can be toxic at first, but over time they are fine. They're not a real problem. So what you would want to do, if you can get a truckload of those, it's fine. I would just pile them somewhere, use them in a compost, maybe for 2 or 3 years, keep them in a pile, keep them wet so that the fungus has moisture to grow, and it will break that down, and eventually they will be good for you. But those, if it smells like oak, like raw oak wood has a certain smell, and it's a pleasant smell, but you can smell the wood. It would be the same with pine pitch. It isn't necessarily very good for your garden. And of course, it's a softwood, but it's the same principle. So if you can smell the wood and identify the wood by its smell, don't use it on your garden yet. You want it to sit for 2 or 3 years until it just smells inert. once the smell of the wood goes away, like cedar, it smells beautiful, right? You have your cedar chest that's unfinished on the inside. Every 4 or 5 years, you can give it a very light sanding and it brings out the flavor again, or the smell, and it's wonderful. And it keeps the bugs away, and that's what you want. But if you have those aromas in something you're using as a mulch on your gardens, you want to wait until those aromas go away. So the best woods to use that are immediately you can put on your garden is what we call white wood, because the wood is pretty white. So it would be things like beeches, birches, poplars, cottonwoods, aspen. Those would be in the white wood group that you can use immediately. So
All right, good to know. Holly, anything else, Holly? Awesome, thank you.
you
That
bet.
helps.
All right, we've had a fun discussion tonight. Hopefully this has helped you with any immediate things going on. And we're going to call it a night. We will see you in 2 weeks. I will not be here next week. We will not be on next week because I will be on a ranch doing a consultation next Thursday. So I will be it'll be in Blanding, Utah is where I will be. Southern Utah, down by the Four Corners. So I will be there for a few days doing that. And so we will see you in 2 weeks. And watch Facebook, because it will be a new link. Zoom only lets me set links up for 20 weeks at a time. And so by the time I'm on again, it will be a new link. So watch my Facebook page. I will post the new link there.
Awesome, thank you. Have a good trip. Look forward
You
to
bet.
seeing you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay,
Bye.
good luck and good night.